Hello and welcome. We've got a really important topic to cover today, especially for any contractors, freelancers, or hiring businesses here in the UK. We're looking at HMRC's official CEST tool. Is it a safe guide to navigate your tax status, or is it a massive financial gamble? This whole breakdown has been put together by the experts over at My Tax Accountant, and we're going to get to the bottom of it, especially with all the noise around the new 2025 budget.
So let's start with a really simple question. Are you genuinely a freelancer? Or, in the eyes of the taxman, are you just an employee in disguise? It's a question that probably keeps a lot of people up at night. And honestly, after the latest announcements in the 2025 budget, the stakes are higher than ever. Getting your employment status wrong isn't just a simple admin error. No, it could mean a huge, potentially business-ending tax bill. This is about your financial future.
Okay, so here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll get to grips with the high-stakes world of IR35. Then, we'll look at HMRC's official answer to all this, the CEST tool. After that, we'll dive into the tool's hidden flaws, and trust me, you'll want to stick around for the $263 million revelation. It's a real eye-opener. Then, we'll get practical with a real compliance strategy, and finally, we'll talk about getting the right advice. Let's get into it.
Right, first things first, we need to understand the rules of the game. Now, the official name is the Off-Payroll Working Rules, but I'm pretty sure you know them by their much more famous and maybe infamous name, IR35. So what exactly is IR35? Well, in a nutshell, it's pretty simple. If you work like an employee, HMRC wants you to pay tax like an employee. Makes sense, right? But here's the game-changing twist. The responsibility for getting this right has shifted. For most contracts now, it's not just the contractor's problem anymore. No, the hiring business is the one legally on the hook. And the penalties for messing this up? Well, they can be absolutely massive.
So with all that pressure on businesses to get it right, you've got to ask, how on earth are you supposed to figure it all out? Well, HMRC has what looks like a nice, simple solution for you, their CEST tool. CEST, it stands for Check Employment Status for Tax. It's basically a free online questionnaire on the gov.uk website. You go on, you answer some questions about how you work, and boom, it spits out what HMRC thinks your IR35 status is. Now, it was updated in April 2025 just to make things a bit clearer, but, and this is a big but, HMRC has said the technical stuff, the engine running underneath, is exactly the same. It sounds pretty helpful, doesn't it?
And this is the sentence that makes so many businesses feel safe. This is why people rely on it. HMRC states right there on their website that they will stand by the tool's result. It feels like a guarantee, a safety net from the taxman himself. But stay with me here. Is that promise really as rock solid as it sounds? Let's find out.
Because this is where the official story starts to crumble. That so-called guarantee, it comes with some pretty big flaws. And the next point is where so many people, even with the best intentions, get tripped up. To understand the problem, we actually have to go way back, all the way to 1968, and this landmark legal case called Ready Mixed Concrete. This case basically wrote the rulebook for what it means to be employed in the UK. And here's the most important part. This is the test the courts actually use. A judge in a tax tribunal, they're looking at this case law, not what some tool on a website says.
And right away, we hit the first major flaw. The courts look very, very closely at something called mutuality of obligation, or MU for short. It's a simple idea. Is the client obliged to keep offering you work, and are you obliged to take it? If the answer is yes, well, that looks an awful lot like a job. But the CEST tool, it's been criticized for years because it kind of just glosses over this. In a lot of cases, it just assumes MU exists, which creates a massive blind spot. Okay, here's a pro tip for you, straight from the experts at My Tax Accountant. CST puts a huge amount of weight on whether you have a right of substitution. So naturally, people just started sticking that clause in their contracts to get the result they wanted. But guess what? HMRC and the courts are not stupid. They look at what would actually happen. So say you're a freelance web developer in London. Could you really just send a mate down the pub to finish a massive project for your biggest client? If the answer is no, then that clause in your contract is basically worthless, and so is your CST result. And get this, for years, about 1 in every 5 people who used the CEST tool got this as their answer, unable to determine. It couldn't make up its mind. Now, HMRC says this just means the case is complex, but if you're a business owner desperate for a clear answer, getting a digital shrug is a pretty big red flag, isn't it? It just shows the tool can't handle the messy reality of how people actually work. So we know the tool has blind spots. We know it often just gives up and can't give an answer. But that's not the worst of it.
Here's where it gets really crazy. What happens when a CST result actually gets challenged in a real court?
This brings us all the way back to that official guarantee we saw earlier, that promise from HMRC to stand by the result. It feels official, it feels safe. So surely, when you're in front of a judge, that's your get-out-of-jail-free card, right?
Brace yourself. In a real tax tribunal, HMRC's own lawyers have stood up in court and argued that the CEST tool is, and I am quoting them directly here, irrelevant. Unbelievable. When it really matters, they argue that the court should ignore their own tool and just apply the old case law, like ready-mixed concrete. In that moment, that guarantee, it just vanishes into thin air.
So what's the real-world cost of all this? What does that risk actually look like when you put a number on it? It looks like this: £263 million. That is the size of the tax bill that UK public sector bodies were hit with after getting their status decisions wrong.
And look, we're not talking about small businesses here. We're talking about major government departments. The Department for Work and Pensions, the Ministry of Justice. These guys got hit with eye-watering tax bills. Now think about it. If these huge departments, HMRC's own colleagues in government, can get it this badly wrong using the official tool, what chance does a small business have?
Okay. So if we know that blindly trusting CST is a huge gamble, what's the answer? Well, it's time to stop gambling and start building a proper compliance strategy. One that actually protects you and will stand up if HMRC ever comes knocking.
Here's a 4-step process for a truly solid defense. Step 1. Use CEST, sure, but see it as a first guess, an indicator of what HMRC might think, not the final answer. Step 2, and this is absolutely critical, document everything. The real power isn't in the CEST result, it's in the evidence you have to back it up. We're talking emails, contracts, invoices, anything that shows a real business-to-business relationship. 3. Don't just set it and forget it. A contract can change over time. Review it every 6 months or so. And 4, if you're ever in doubt, especially on a big or long-term contract, get an independent expert to review it.
And really, all of this leads to one pretty clear conclusion. Managing your IR35 risk is about a lot more than just clicking a few buttons on a website. It requires real, specialist knowledge.
So let's sum it all up. What's the bottom line? First, the 2025 budget hasn't made the risk of IR35 go away. Second, CEST is a guide, but it is not a legal shield that will protect you. Third, the courts, who have the final word, they care about decades of case law, not HMRC's tool. That means your only real defense is a solid, documented process. And finally, as we saw with that $263 million number, getting this wrong can be absolutely devastating.
And that really brings us to the final question you need to ask yourself today. Is your business truly protected? Or are you just kind of hoping for the best, one HMRC compliance check away from a life-changing tax bill?
Trying to navigate all this on your own is just a massive, unnecessary risk. For a proper strategy that actually defends you, it is always best to get professional, expert help. For guidance on IR35, CEST, and any of your other tax needs, you can contact the expert team at My Tax Accountant. Their phone number is 020-8570-8531, and their email is info@mytaxaccountant.co.uk.
And just to finish, a quick disclaimer. Please remember that the information in this video is for general guidance only. You shouldn't rely on it alone to make big financial decisions. Every business is different, so before you do anything, you must consult with qualified tax experts like the brilliant team at My Tax Accountant for advice that's tailored specifically to you.